All right. Hello, everyone. Wow, what a great turnout. Thanks so much for coming tonight. I am so excited to talk to you about all of our adventures that we've had in UEFN and Fortnite, and specifically developing one of our projects in there called Pal-Nite. My name is Tom. I'm the director of Gossamer Games, and I'm going to start by showing you a little bit about the work we do at Gossamer. We've been around in Philly and around Drexel for quite a while, and also this came up again, so let me try and hide this. Yeah, I'm gonna kick this off. Hopefully we'll see if we have sound. Fingers crossed. Hey, we do. This is our latest demo reel, including some of the Fortnite projects that I'm gonna be showing and talking about today. All right, so that's our demo reel. We have been around for almost 10 years, which is going to be a really big milestone for us. As you can tell by the demo reel, our studio is pretty weird and eclectic in that we bounce around between genre to genre, game to game. We don't stick with like one lane and just focus on that one specific type of design. We bounce around wherever we're interested in, which is really fun and exciting to work in. That's also made it really an interesting challenge to try and survive commercially and trying to make money in the video game industry. As you are no doubt aware, the current state of the video game industry and making money in games is not really in a super great place. It's harder now, I think, than ever, probably, to get funding for projects and to make a living making video games. So my studio has tried a bunch of different things. We, of course, release games as original productions on Steam, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox are the three, and then iOS and Android as well. We've tried releasing original things. We've also done collaborations, working with universities, working with museums, and working on kind of like work for hire type projects, which has actually paid the majority of our bills and kept us kind of afloat. But of course, one thing that's really important for us is that we are always creating projects that we're passionate about and projects that let us, again, explore as video game designers and make the games we want to make. So how do we do that in an industry where it feels like the only way to really make money is to spend 3 or 4 years of your life self-funding a production with the hopes that you're going to get a publisher, with the hopes that they're going to give you enough funding so you actually make that money back, and more importantly, make enough money to fund your next production, right? That's really hard in today's industry. And so one thing that we are always thinking about and trying to explore and discover are projects that let us scale down the scope of video game development, do smaller, faster productions that are a little bit less risky for us, so we can juggle a few at one time and minimize the amount of risk we're taking on with any one production. We learned this because our very first game that was in the trailer there, Soul, took 5 years and ended up, I think, making like $4,000 or $5,000 back, which was not enough. It turns out to fund a team. Again, we have a very small team, like 3 core developers there, but I mean, that's not going to cover a single month of that, right? So always exploring and trying to find ways of making money in this very volatile, unstable industry right now. About a year ago, Epic Games comes out and announces a really cool thing at GDC. Nope. If we can figure out how to do this. They announced something at GDC called the Unreal Editor for Fortnite, or UEFN, which was really interesting and exciting because it seemed like they were betting really big on this tool, and we were very much watching. So this is what they announced. Sorry, all the videos are probably going to be really low in resolution, by the way. That's how it looks. So this was really interesting and exciting for my team because number one, again, I saw how many resources Epic was dumping into this. We had kind of made the switch a little bit from primarily working exclusively in Unity to working in Unreal 4 in our second production. That was very intentional because we didn't want to be tied to just one specific tool or engine, which it turns out was a very good move with everything that's been happening with Unity and such. And so we were already familiar with Unreal a little bit, and we were interested because this seemed like a way of reaching the Fortnite audience in a way that we couldn't really reach that demographic before. So we started playing with the tools and experimenting with it. But what was really eye-catching and interesting to us, does anyone know how I can like skip through these without actually playing the video? Do I have to, if I hit escape and then? See, I think it's because we have like 10 layers of stuff happening here. Well, I'm just gonna have to keep doing this, I guess, every time. So that will be cool. I'll leave it like this. How about that? We saw this stat. I'll go. And this was pretty eye-opening to us. If we hide this, if someone can Google how to skip a video thing when Zoom is going, that would be amazing. Because I'm gonna have to do this like every time so you can actually see, because that is a really important number. They put this out in April of 2023, so about a month or so after they had released UEFN, and you can see, according to this chart, how much money they were paying out to creators in that ecosystem. It was not hundreds of dollars, it was tens of millions of dollars to some creators. So this is the scale, right? This is how many creators were being paid these different tiers. And the caveat to this was it's like they took the number and extrapolated it to what it would be if it maintained the same rate over 12 months or something. So it wasn't like somebody had made $10 million in 1 month, though that might have happened since they put this out, because again, this was like a month or two after they put out, but someone was making probably $1 million like in a month for this. And we were like, wow, that was pretty eye-opening, because when we had played Fortnite as a team, it was way before like the creative stuff was really pushed like in the front of the application. It was kind of like something you had to kind of go and search for and dig in and try and find. So we were like, we don't really know anything about this. We know that they're trying to do something like a Roblox thing. But the cool thing about UEFN in the Fortnite ecosystem is inside of Fortnite, as a creator, you don't build in any microtransactions. You don't build in like your own monetization structure, which was really important for us because I hate predatory like monetization structures. And especially if it's targeting like kids or young demographics like that, that just makes me feel not good as a designer and developer. And so having an ecosystem where I could create something cool and be compensated for that through a scheme like this sounded amazing. So my team started researching and thinking about what types of games we would make. We had actually spent a good, and I unfortunately don't have any footage of this, but we had spent about probably like a month or so experimenting with the tools and thinking of all the different types of games we could make, and thinking, as we usually do, with very large scale productions, and then realizing, you know what, we should probably do something a little bit smaller before we try and do something with a full narrative and voice acting and multiple levels and all of those things. So in doing some more research, there we go. We found this game and this type of game design was really popular in Fortnite. And we thought, wow, this is actually a pretty achievable design. It's taking the format of 100 days on an island or something. I'll show later, but everything is basically like a clone of Mr. Beast videos, right? Like in the thumbnails, they just take Mr. Beast and like put their face like right in the front, right? And of course, there's no affiliation, right, with Mr. Beast, but that's what they do. So we thought this was a really achievable design because it's basically you're in this one circle and it's just 100 waves of different enemies coming at you. Things scaling up, right, getting more powerful over time. And you having all the weapons that you're unlocking over the course of the game. And this felt to us like a single screen game, right, where it's one defined space. The scope is pretty well defined. Everything is there kind of from the beginning. And you can just go and play through it, and it takes maybe 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how many people are playing. And the quality of this is okay, but it didn't really feel super premium. It felt really basic, right? We were like, we could do that better for sure, right? And so that kind of became our new goal after experimenting with the tools for about a month and seeing what we could do, and doing a lot of like tech research and understanding what is possible with the tools. We decided, all right, we're going to go ahead and make our own version of this, but better, which is always a good way of exercising and practicing design. So we ended up creating our version of this called 100 Days Underwater, sticking with the 100 Days thing, but instead doing like a Jaws underwater type thing. We hoped we'd be able to do like better graphics and more original things. I'd imported a underwater pack that I had gotten from the marketplace, the Unreal Marketplace, which you can actually just, and I'll show the actual interface and working set of UEFN here in a minute, but you can just take like Unreal Marketplace assets and just import them directly into Fortnite. You can use Nanite, you can use Lumen, you can use all the cool tech that Unreal 5 offers, and use those assets inside of Fortnite. So that's what we ended up creating. And one day, if anyone has the shortcut for doing this, it's such like a niche thing we're trying to do here. There's not that many more videos, I promise, though. This was, let me pull up my stats here, hopefully. Our stats after the first week of production, or after releasing it. I'm trying to see here. This is also like not showing me. I mean, you can see that we had 32,000 players in a day, which is pretty crazy. I think we ended up with something like 60,000 something players at the end of the first week. And keeping in mind that when we'd put out original games launching on Nintendo Switch and launching on Xbox and things, we would sell 2,000 copies or something. And so seeing this number of players was pretty incredible. That kept going for the first month. And oh, I really wish that I could see the notes here. Let me just exit out of here and get the actual notes. I love how this also keeps coming up every time. Within our first 3 weeks, you can see that we had 264,000 plays, 21, the average play time of our play being 21 minutes per session, 5.8 million minutes of people playing our game. and a 4% retention rate, which is important for monetization purposes inside of Fortnite. So this ended up making us, I think the first paycheck we got was something like $7,000 or $8,000 for 1 month. And we were like, whoa, because this is more money than we had ever made across all of our original games that we had ever put out on Nintendo, on Steam, on Xbox. It was more money in 1 month doing a production that took, I think, 2 weeks for us to make, compared to how 7 years of working in like original productions. So we said we should keep doing this. And so we did. We have now released 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, even though it's really kind of 9, but we'll say 10 games inside the Fortnite ecosystem. A spoiler is none of them have come even close to our first one, which we're still trying to figure out what the magic is. And we'll talk more about what could be the reasons behind that. But we've released 10 projects right now in the Fortnite ecosystem. And I'll kind of talk a little bit about each one of these and some of the philosophies behind them, but I'll also just show some gameplay that we're pretty proud of. I would say that this one is a project that we feel is very underrated and we really hope is one day going to get players. We've submitted to be featured by Epic. That's something that you can do as a creator, is trying to get your projects featured and put like at the top of the discovery and algorithms by submitting. So we just did that actually today. So fingers crossed. This is a game that we made for our Game Jam. They did the Epic Mega Jam. I think it was in October or something, in the fall of last year. And so we came up with it was antiquated future or something like that, I think was the theme. So we had the idea of kind of mixing like the past and the future together, using almost like a Titanfall 2 like dimension time swapping thing, but in a team deathmatch setting. So you're in one team deathmatch and you're swapping between. So this isn't like really edited video that much. When it's kind of cutting between different things, you're just like teleporting to like a different dimension. And so the idea is that you're trying to time when the other player is going to be in the same dimension as you. You just crouch to teleport. So you're just blending like the strategy and the reflexes and the audio dynamically changing between like different dimensions and all that. So we were super proud about this. We made it in 5 or 6 days, probably. So again, really, really small scale productions, which has been super refreshing for us as creatives. It actually worked this time. And again, minimizing the risk that we're taking with every production. I just wanted to put this one. We had tried to kind of build upon the formula that we had established with our underwater one and the 100-day surviving formula in a different light, using a gladiator format. So instead of being gun-based, this was melee-based, but a lot of the same type of gameplay. And of course, a completely different environment that we once again got on the marketplace. And so again, maybe like a week of development or something like that to get that out. And again, sadly, none of our additional projects have really reached the heights of our original one. But to talk a little bit more about some of our other projects really briefly, they just released at this GDC, so it was a few weeks ago, right? Like last month. The ability of creating officially licensed but not officially affiliated Lego games inside of Fortnite. So you can actually use like the Lego IP and the Lego assets in your own creations. And when you do that, you pay 15% to the Lego company, but then you keep the rest that you make through the ecosystem. So we created a game for that. We saw at one point that board games were doing like really well, or just adaptations, Clue, Uno, stuff like that. So we had made like a battleship type game. that was actually really hard technically to do because it's so different from like the standard Fortnite gameplay. So we learned a lot technically for that. We created a game when aliens and UFOs were really hot. And in the mainstream discussion, the multiverse I just showed, the fart game is a masterpiece, number one. And number two, we thought would be the one that made us like $10 million because we had put it out right when they had added the ability of searching via like text, because before you had to enter in a specific island code for everything, but then you could start. That was our thought, was like, yeah, the first thing they're going to type in there is fart. So like we have to be, and there were like two that were like ready to go that had that name. So we were like, all right, we got to be the fart game. So we did that. It's I think like our third best or fourth best level. So not bad, right? And then box fights, of course. We don't know anything about Fortnite or anything, but we know that box fights are really cool. So we took like the dimension swapping aspect and thought, oh, that'd be really cool in a box fight. So we put it in there. And then there was also like a first person thing that was kind of happening for a minute. So we experimented with that too. So those are all the things. And then this one I haven't talked about because I'm going to talk about it much more in depth right now. But yeah, those were what we had kind of experimented with over the course of the past right about a year of development. So you can see, again, instead of spending 3 years making one game, we could spend 1 year making 10 games and finding some success here and there with some of our different productions, right? So that takes us to the most complicated technically and design and conceptual project that we worked on in Fortnite. And dare I say, one of the more ambitious projects we worked on as a studio that we were able to complete and finish and release over the course of a month and a half, I think, like that. It's also, I'll talk more about the production, but it's probably the first game that I've truly crunched on, like true crunch, working 14, 15 hours a day, solid the entire time, which I will not ever do again, and also didn't pay off. But here is a quick gameplay trailer for this project. And again, sorry the resolution is terrible. I'll show you better videos here. All right. So this was a really big project for us. We, for real, you may have heard of a little game called Pal-World. Yeah, this little indie, wait, it is kind of like an indie thing, right? I mean, that was like such a weird game. Like, because we saw it and we were like, wow, that's just a ripoff of Pokemon, but also like kind of good for them for doing this. A lot of like really mixed thoughts on this, which is also why we felt kind of comfortable like cloning it and putting in for that was like the only IP I think I really felt super comfortable kind of doing that with, because it was like, well, they kind of did it too. So anyway, so we saw the hype that was happening with Pal-World, and right, I think it was like literally the day after Pal-World came out, they announced this brand new update for the Unreal Editor for Fortnite called the NPC Spawner. They'll let you spawn custom NPCs and like put them in your world and use them in your games. And we were like, oh my God. Because everyone's going to start, the name of the game with Fortnite and the creative stuff here is, as soon as there's a new thing, there is a floodgate that opens and every creator goes and tries to make something with the new stuff, because everyone wants to see the new stuff, right? They want to play with the new stuff. So we're like, oh my God, you have the Pal-World, you have the NPCs, it's all happening, it's destined, right? We're going to make a game about this and it's going to be awesome. So we started working on this project. And the first thing we did was look at, well, what are assets we can do? we were going to invest heavily in this. And so we were going to spend like a few $100s, right, on something like this. This is something that we could do because we'd already made thousands and thousands of dollars in this ecosystem. So you're like, okay, it's probably worth spending a little bit of money and making that back when we actually get our revenue from Fortnite. So we'd bought, I think, 2 packs or so. The key I always say when finding and using assets in your project is you want consistency, right? And so we found like one really good creator, and like that's kind of like all they did was make these like Pokemon type things. And so we went searching through their catalog and found a few different packs. They were all made for Unity, so we had to really work to convert them all to be functional inside of Unreal. But they had like a whole kind of like Pokedex thing already going almost. They had like names and evolutions for all of them. And so we were like, yes, this is exactly what we need. It's perfect. And the next day I came in and drew a really bad map that ended up not changing really like at all. So it worked out really well actually, but I wanted to make sure that we had all the different biomes. So already I was like, okay, here's the creatures. I categorized them into what types of biomes they would probably live in. And then I was like, okay, we need a desert, we need a forest, caves, beach, and grasslands and mountains. And then the math worked out actually pretty evenly, where they were pretty evenly distributed across all the different biomes. And so we were ready to go. We had the assets that we needed and the design kind of ready to go. I'm going to start playing this and maybe I can actually do this. I don't believe you were 1080. I just don't believe it. It's lying to you all the time. YouTube just lies. This is a playthrough that somebody made of our game, which is always really exciting, of course. And somebody else plays your thing. Oh, and of course now it's not going to let me skip ahead. All right. Oh, please. This struggle is real, y'all. With this tech. Okay, well, that's fine. We did like a little opening cutscene type thing. That was very reminiscent, pretty much like lifted from Pal-World. And then...
Well. Look what the Sneckins dragged in. I see we have a new trainer in town. Welcome to Pal Island. The name's Olive. I'm the lead researcher here on the expedition. What do you say we get you kitted out and ready to work? Right then, I reckon first order of business is to start with the basics. First up, snagging yourself a pal. Try chucking one of those clingers at the bugger to snag him. You caught him! Nice work, trainer. See how she started following you about? A captured pal will try their best to tag along and help protect against any adversaries. You can have up to 6 of the critters at once. Go on, try and snag a few more.
All right, so they're going to snag a few more here. So this is the gameplay loop that we ended up finding. Number one, it's a little janky, much like our source material, right? We couldn't figure out the animations, so we said, you know what? It's fine. And just left it like that. But you can go and capture Pokemon, right? Like they start being on your team. Because we're using the new NPC tools, they will like fight for you. And so they all have different weapons. They're all like balanced differently. They have different health and stamina stats and like all of that stuff. There are 60, I think 63 different Pokemon things that you can find in the game. Pals, I guess I should say. And yeah, you kind of go and assemble your team and catch them using little plunger things that feel really good to use because there's like gravity and physics inside of all of them. We ended up using so this is the first game that we've ever had voice acting. It is, of course, AI voice acting because I did this in like 2 days. But we found a really great tool called, I think 11 Labs is the name of it, 11labs.io or something like that. It's pretty scary. So AI is a whole, generative AI is a whole conversation to have regarding this stuff. What I will say is there is 0% chance we would have ever paid a voice actor to work on this, like 0%. And the same with our art and stuff like that. So a lot of discussion to have about generative AI and stuff, but we did use it a lot in this production because it was mainly myself working on all the writing and getting all the voice acting and AI voicing into the game, and of course all the gameplay, the island design, like all of that stuff again in about a month was a lot. So we had to rely on the tools that we had available to us. The other aspect of this game that's a little bit different from a traditional Pokemon game is not only do you go and catch them, but then you take them back, and we all wanted to add like a tycoon aspect because that's really popular inside of Fortnite. And so then you have a whole zoo. I bought like a little framework of a zoo on Turbo Squid or something, and I made like a whole full-scale zoo in the game that you're going and unlocking each pen for all your different critters. And it basically acts as like a 3D Pokedex almost, where you can go and you have to collect all the materials that you need to unlock them and to build them. So you need like enough wood and stone and all that stuff to do it. This person eventually does it at some point. Yeah, they go chop down a tree and build their thing.
See what we discovered.
Yeah, you can put your Pokemon into or your pal into the pen. And then you can open up a whole Pokedex that has like all the descriptions and the pictures and the portraits of all the different ones.
Critters under every rock in this place.
It's all, of course, sequenced with the voice acting.
That's no walk in the park, mate. Best we get over to the upgrade shop next door.
So,
and
needless
give
to
your
say,
material.
this was, again, the scope of this production was number one, bigger than anything that we had done, but also probably bigger than anything we'd seen in Fortnite in terms of having this many systems, this much like content, using all the newest features inside of UEFN and Fortnite. And it ended up being an incredibly technical project to be working on. I want to really, really briefly just jump out, and I have actually the project open right now. Here it is. This is our setup for Pal-Nite. I'll talk very briefly about kind of like the tech setup here. This is, by the way, if you haven't seen UEFN, this is what it looks like. If you've used Unreal 4 or 5 before, it looks almost the exact same as those tools, which is incredible. Again, that they were able to, and Fortnite kind of being built using Unreal and they're actually switching full production of Fortnite to specifically using UEFN, which is an incredible decision on their part. But a lot of the skills transfer pretty much one-to-one, is what I would say. Our project is set up. One of the hardest things that we were trying to manage is not only is this a single player game, which you would expect, of course, but we wanted this to be multiplayer because we know that Fortnite is a really social experience for so many players. And so we wanted we wanted 8 players to be all on the same island at the same time. They would all have their own zoo that you could go and visit and help them kind of build and all these things. We ran out of memory space because there is a constraint that you have for every project. And so we had to cut that down like player by player, one by one, until we finally got down to underneath the limit. And that ended up being 4 players. But we do have it set up so you can go with 3 of your friends and have 4 people going and catching the different pals all across the island. And also, if you run into another player, you can battle their pals with your pals. So it's like a multiplayer Pokemon Tycoon thing, open world. It's ambitious. This is our setup. You can see that we have all the little blue areas here are different pals that will spawn different places. If I zoom in one of them, for instance, we basically stack all the species into one spawn location and then add a percentage that they will spawn. So the evolution 1, the basic stuff, right, is most likely to spawn. I think that's usually like has like a 50% chance of spawning. And then evolution 2 is like 30%. And then evolution 3 is whatever is left over from that. And it kind of depends on some of them do have evolution. Most of them have 3 evolutions. Some only have 2, but we play with all of that stuff. They all, again, have different stats. But this is how we spawn them and handle. So when a player walks into any of these areas, it kind of streams them in and spawns them. And then we have to worry about despawning them because there's a limit to how many NPCs can exist in one island for all players. So the more players you have, if you have 4 players, you might run out of NPCs to spawn, basically, because there's, again, like a memory limit. So we've had to do a lot with spawning and despawning and the management of all that stuff. Again, assigning them to the correct biomes and having the desert. If I went back to my map, you have my beautiful map that you can see. Yeah. It pretty much translated 1-to-1. The only difference was when I had first tried to make this map, I had accidentally made it like twice as big as it should have been. Which is a really easy mistake to make because you think that something should be super, super huge, and then you actually get in and realize that it's way too big, and it would take like 30 minutes to cross the map, which sounds awesome, but then you're like, oh, I have to fill all of that. Which, by the way, I think even as of now, Unreal Editor for Fortnite does have a foliage tool, but it doesn't let you place trees that can be cut down or rocks that can be cut down or anything. So every single one of these trees and every single rock and every single prop was hand placed by me over the course of like a very, very long night. So you can imagine sitting and dragging in all of these trees one by one by one. I think there's thousands, is what I know. So that is pretty miserable, but you can put them all in. It's possible. And then, of course, trying to make sure that every island for the player zoo is basically the exact same. Again, placing every tree, but with the ability of kind of like duplicating things, right? And saving some of their positions. But we have, again, a whole zoo that you can go and explore. We have an upgrade shop, by the way, where you can upgrade and buy different weapons, and also the rate at which your resources respawn. You can increase that too. So again, adding into the tycoon aspect of all of this. When another player is on your island, we disable combat. There are so many edge cases that we had never really thought about working on a single player, or I guess a single player focused campaign experience, but also having support for like PvP and co-op kind of. There are a lot of elements to juggle with all of these different things. We also figured out how to do design, like interior designs, and doing cave designs too. So there's like caves with multiple levels. So you have like these dungeons basically that get harder the further they go down. Yeah, this is basically the level design. If we did a memory calculation and opened up this project instead of Fortnite, I think the last thing we did, we came in at 99,450 out of 100,000. So we had like this much left in our memory. So we could not add, we at one point had like hoverboards and vehicles and things that we had to cut, and we had other players we had to cut too. You had a question? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So there's like a memory size, because they don't want you creating experiences that would take players like 10 minutes to download, because no one would play that, right? So they try and limit how much memory your thing actually takes to make the download sizes fast, and to make it so people would actually play it. So that was a really big challenge for this project specifically, because there's so much stuff. You know, that's also including all the creatures and their animations that we were using, and just all the audio cues and just everything that's included in that, like the voice acting cues and all that stuff, right? That all gets counted in there too. I'm super happy to talk much more about like the actual tech behind all this. If people have specific questions or programmer who did most of the programming here, is also in the audience. So if you have specific questions about that, the one final thing that I will show you is if we open our Verse Explorer. One thing that is really powerful and that separates a creation tool like this from something like Project Spark or Dreams or Little Big Planet or like those types of things is it does have a full-blown, if I do my player manager device, scripting language called Verse. It is its own language entirely, basically. So it's not based on C#, it's not based on C++, like it's its own thing entirely. The documentation is getting there slowly but surely. But you can see, I mean, this script is let's see, 800 almost. Yeah, 850. 860 lines of code. That's one script, by the way, because we have all of these scripts. This is a full-blown code base, right? Like this is not just like playing with the built-in functionality. This is an entire code base that you can do. It just goes to show you, you can make full-blown games inside of this engine that are completely separate from like the standalone standard Fortnite gameplay. So it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. You can do a lot of incredible stuff with it. And you can see how much we were able to do. And this is getting into some of the newer features like having persistent saving. So if a player starts playing your island and then wants to come back and pick up where they left off, you can do that. So you have to do like save and load management and like wiping their save datas and like all of that stuff. It can get incredibly, incredibly complicated. So that is a small hint. Again, I can take questions and talk more after the presentation about the specific tech stuff if y'all have the specific questions about how we did all these things. All that is to say, again, a really complicated project to knock out in about a month, right? And something that we're incredibly proud that we were able to even do within the constraints of the tools that we were working in. So how did it all turn out and where is it going and all of that? Before I get to that, I guess I did want to jump in a little bit more and talk about leading up to the release. As always, it's never enough just to make the game. You have to go and like do marketing and things. One thing that I have a lot of mixed feelings about is kind of the distribution of games inside of Fortnite. It's a blessing and a curse because in the video game industry right now, I think you can make a really, really, really great game and have nobody ever see it or look at it for like a second and no one will play it because marketing is really, really hard to do. It takes so much time and it just feels like it's harder and harder to actually reach an audience wherever you're trying to market. If it's on PC, if it's on console, if it's on mobile, it just seems impossible to like market yourself these days without having a really big publisher who can give you either a ton of money or that has connections with the platform holders to say like, hey, we need to have a publisher's sale or a publisher thing that's going to be on the front page of Steam, right? And that's how you get seen, is because you're part of like, you have those connections. Fortnite has none of that, with the exception of the one category that they have for like the epic picks where they select like one row of games is kind of included there. There's not really a lot of, it feels very much, and we'll go through it here in a minute, but it feels more like a YouTube feed of just like content, which again is a blessing and a curse because that means that from what I understand, there's not a whole lot of traffic that gets driven to a Fortnite level outside of Fortnite, right? It's not like you need to go on Twitter or X or whatever platform and do like a whole marketing campaign. From what I understand, that might get you like 100 plays or something, but that's not going to be enough to get you where you want to be. So putting in all that monumental effort into like a giant marketing campaign doesn't actually seem to be that super effective in the Fortnite ecosystem, which is really interesting because that means, number one, those traditional marketing strategies aren't as important as maybe inside the Fortnite ecosystem, but it also places a huge emphasis on the thumbnail, right? The thumbnail is everything. Very much like YouTube, where all you see is a thumbnail, right? But even YouTube is kind of different because they changed it now where it auto plays, right? And that is all different now too. But anyway, the thumbnail is like the most important part. I, of course, tried to resist the AI temptation and make my own thing using renderings from inside of Fortnite. And I really tried, spent like 2 days or something just using the assets. And I came up with this and I was like, this doesn't look good. So then I went to AI and in 30 seconds it gave me this. And I was like, well, it's just like, it's, how do you compete? Like, it's so like, and I'll show, this is of course not the final thing. I ended up spending like an entire day going and editing that to become this is what our final thumbnail ended up being. So I ended up going and replacing like, I mean, almost everything, like that area, that area, that area is different. All of this whole thing, you can't really even see it that well, but that's all different. I added, yeah, everything is different. Anyway, I spent like a ton of time and effort on all that stuff, but it just goes to show that when you're doing something really quick and fast in this ecosystem, it is really hard to, and especially, and we'll look at some of the other thumbnails here in a minute. It's really hard if you want to stand out and succeed in that ecosystem to not use tools like that. I have found, because the level of production quality needs to be pretty high and Pixar-esque and just well rendered. So again, generative AI is really hard to talk about. But I found in this ecosystem, in this game, we really felt like we had no other option. This is the stats for our first game or for the release of this. I believe this is to date. So you can see that when we launched, we were super excited because we launched and within, and this is mostly true for most projects, within the first 18 hours, you will know, are you going to be beloved by the algorithms or are you going to be forgotten by the algorithms? And if you're forgotten, that's it. You're going to get no plays, no money. It's over. And we got in the algorithms and we were super excited because it's the first time that we'd actually gotten in the algorithms and we had gotten into like the popular category and we were doing awesome and we were hitting like the numbers that we were hitting in our first game, the underwater zombie one. And so we were super excited and we woke up the next morning and we were still there. And we were like, oh my God, this is it. This is going to be the one. We spent so much time and energy and effort and it was awesome. And then we fell out of the algorithms like a few hours later and just never got back in. And we're still trying to figure out why, because in the past, we've seen the algorithms acting in cycles of like, you'll be in and then out and in and out and in and out. And they'll kind of, it creates a heartbeat that you can actually see in the stats. You'll see like a little heartbeat that is kind of going. We never got back in. So we don't know exactly what happened. And talking with some other successful creators, it seems like the most important statistics are #1 click-through rate for a project. So that's the first thing that I think the algorithms are probably looking for is when they do show your project, how many people are actually clicking on your thumbnail, which again goes to show that that thumbnail is a make or break for everything. And anything else that you have going on doesn't really matter unless you have a really good thumbnail. Once you do the thumbnail, then it is looking at playtime. And this is where I've heard that you really want to target like a 25-minute or more average playtime. That's a lot. For Fortnite kids with like 0 attention span, trying to get them to sit down and play for 25 minutes is a pretty big sell. Our entire design, if you go and watch a playthrough of our game or whatever, we tried to string along content and have beats that would be right until like 20 minutes or so and keep you strung along, seeing new content and everything for about that time frame. It worked out. I think I have on the next thing you can actually see our average playtime The more people who play your map, the more that playtime drops, is what our experience has been. But you can see that it's somewhere. So the first day was awesome. We were like, oh my God, this is great. We have like an above like a 36-minute average playtime or whatever, but that was a really small sample, because then the next day is when it really climbed up. And then that dropped all the way down to 17 minutes. And we were like, uh-oh, that's not great. We put out an update, and then it bounced up actually pretty quickly back up to 27 minutes, and it has stayed somewhere between like 20 and 27 minutes, somewhere like 23 or 24 minutes probably on average, for a playtime, which I think is maybe like a minute too low for those algorithms to really reward that. So that could be part of why we haven't really seen getting back into the algorithms. And then the final aspect is retention. I don't know exactly what a good retention is. I think I've heard something like a 10% or more is like pretty good. Retention being if somebody played your level one day, they would come back the next day. I'm pretty happy that we have like a 8%, 9% retention rate. I mean, that feels pretty good to me, but maybe in the algorithms, that's not enough. But you can see that and there's also like weird moments where it'll just spike. Like we've had things where it shows that I think it resets at midnight or something. And if somebody is playing like at 11 o'clock and they're still playing past midnight, I think it counts, and it just counts as like 100% sometimes. So anyway, we've seen some of that stuff. Long story short, we haven't really seen our project get back into the algorithms. This is, I pulled this from today, what is currently kind of inside of Fortnite. Basically, again, it's working almost like YouTube, I feel like, or any other platform where if you aren't seen like this, nobody will play your game because they're not going to see it. They're not going to search for it. There's not really super great algorithms that are going to go and recommend personalized content. There is like a category, I think, that recommends personalized content for you, but that's not really that well thought out right now in Fortnite. So this is what you have. This is what you're competing against. One thing I have done is go through and draw like little highlights around the ones that are basically either ripping IP or are kind of influenced very heavily to lead you to believe that they're part of that IP. But I would say that Pal-Nite probably falls within that category. One thing that we've really struggled with is we know that players go to Fortnite because that is a game completely built around all the IPs coming together. It has Family Guy, it has Rick and Morty, it has all the anime things, it has all of them in one place. And of course, if you're a player and you're playing community-made things, you're going to want to play recognizable content with your friends. The catch is you're not really allowed to do that or supposed to do that according to like the creator rule. So like there's a lot of IP theft and a lot of IP mismanagement that is happening inside the ecosystem. But all of that said, you can look and see what types of games people are playing inside of Fortnite here and what's doing well. Red versus blue is like 80% of the content, which is incredible. Build fights are huge. Again, you can see all the red versus blue. And this is where it's important too, by the way. One thing that we've kind of learned, or we have a theory on, this text, no one's going to read that. Nobody is going to read the name of your thing. They don't care. They care about the thumbnail. And so one thing that a lot of games do is put either something that if you look at it, you immediately know what type of game it is. If it's red versus blue, you immediately know exactly what that is. Or they put the name of it pretty large somewhere in the thumbnail. Or they just have Mr. Beast being sad on an island, because that is a really common thing. And also really bad AI things as well, just with all different types of characters and IPs. How many Mr. Beasts can you handle, y'all? Everyone loves Mr. Beast. Poppy playtime is really huge. The back rooms is huge. Oh, what's the other one? Skibbity toilet is huge. Like they're all the memes, right? All the like most obnoxious things, right? They're all in here. So if you want some console wars, you have Xbox and PlayStation duking it out. Oh, Five Nights at Freddy's, of course, is like the top, of course. Um, box fights, tycoon games, another really bad Simpsons. It doesn't even look like Homer. It's really terrible. Among Us is, of course, huge as well. Fort Kia, I really thought was amazing. Mr. Beast if you wanted that. All right. So where did this whole experiment lead us? So I'm still not really sure where Fortnite fits in. I mean, for us, so at this point we spent a pretty considerable amount of time in this ecosystem trying to make it work. We've made a decent amount of money. I think to date we've made a little over $23,000 off the ecosystem, which again is way more than any of our original titles combined. We found much more success in here, but it's also been like a year of working in it, and it's certainly not full time, and certainly not with everyone on the team. If you added up everything, like maybe a day a week, probably on average, if we had to like really do the math for that. So over the course of the year, it's not bad, right? I think a lot about where does this stand compared to the rest of the industry in terms of making money. But more than making money, it's like, as an artist and as a creator, how do I feel about this too? And that's where I start having a lot of mixed feelings, because again, looking at the types of games that are here, the quality isn't really that high. The entertainment value it feels pretty gross to me in a lot of ways.
Meant for baby games.
It is, yeah. And one exciting part about that is, as a creator, I always want to reach. I love the idea of creating games for younger audiences and for kids specifically. I know that it is super hard now more than ever to make a game and convince a kid to go and like download an app or go and buy it. Or it's so hard to reach that demographic. You kind of have to go to where they are. And so I like the idea of working in Fortnite, but the ecosystem is so hard to work in because so much of it is using other IPs and doesn't really reward original productions, and really only rewards games that are going to keep people coming back and playing over and over again, or that are going to have a high average playtime. It kind of rewards a specific type of game design, which I like to make more single player, like you play it once and you're kind of done experiences. So the design has to fit with the audience, has to fit within this ecosystem. So creatively, there's a lot of mixed feelings I have about this. But at the end of the day, is this? I think this is it. Oh, no. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so this is how much money we've made month to month. And unfortunately, I don't really, well, you can, if you like looked in there on the Zoom, people can see. If you look at the charts and the scales and everything, yeah, we're getting like our top month was when the month after we'd put out the underwater game, and that was like $7,000 or something that month. And we've had kind of ups and downs along the way, depending on what we're putting out and everything. But still a pretty substantial amount of income. And I especially just imagine if you were doing this as a single solo creator, this could go a long way to being like a real, like sustainable annual income if you were like able to play it right. And that is more than I can say for most of the other industries inside the video game industry. So, and then the final thing is that even outside the money and stuff like that, one of the coolest things that we've been able to say now is that we have officially had over 1 million plays across all of our work, which again is so many multiple times how much we've had across any of our other projects. That it is really cool working on something that people are actually playing, because that is the most painful thing in this industry today, is that there's an oversaturation of media, and it's impossible to convince anyone to give you even the single minute of their day to experience your work. And so this is an ecosystem where you can find that and get millions of plays, millions of players, in playtime. And the final thing I'll show you, if anyone is interested in checking all this stuff out, there is an amazing, amazing website called Fortnite.gg. It's not like officially run by Fortnite, I'm pretty sure, but it has stats on everything and every creation. And you can go down and see who the top creators are, how many minutes they've had played. This is 500, or so this is Epic, so that doesn't count. If you do Bullseye, for instance, they've done these box fights. They have had 15 billion minutes, with a B, billion minutes of playtime. And if you just click on one of their things, for instance, it will also go on and tell you. So they had, this is concurrent players, 82,000 concurrent players in one Fortnite map. And it will also give you an estimate of how much money they have made. This is in one day. This is all time. We're talking $7 million for one creation, and they have like 5 that are popular. So you can see if you hit it big, you can hit it really, 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 really big. But again, the design has to be right, the audience has to be right, and it's really hard to succeed in this ecosystem. But to be honest, I don't know how different that is from succeeding on PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo or anything now. The only difference is you can make something like this in 2 days or 3 days instead of 2 or 3 years. So that's all that I know about Fortnite and our journey so far. Thank you so much for coming, and I'm so happy to take questions. Thank you.
8:30 now, or almost 8:40. We got the room until 9 at least. So, yeah, go.
Yes, questions, please.
Q&A panel for someone. Yeah.
Yes, go for it.
Let's say over like the past like 25 years, because years ago, like the kid market was basically you bought a PlayStation for your kid, then you bought like a movie license game or any of those, and now a lot of these kids these days are growing up with tablets, not necessarily consoles. So you have games like Fortnite, which are an open ecosystem for creators. Would you say a lot of the kids market has moved on to these more ecosystem-based platforms?
I think so. That's my hypothesis. I don't know if that comes from like publishers kind of changing direction and changing what projects are getting funded and like the numbers that they're seeing, or if it's a change of like consumer behavior and consumer spending. What I do know is that, at least to me, it feels like a really hard sell, not even just for kids games, but just for any game, to get people to pay upfront money for any game, even if it's $5 for like a full indie game. When you're competing against Game Pass and you're competing against Fortnite and Roblox and all the free games that are out there today right now, it's a really hard sell, is what it feels like to me. And I know that I don't know anything about Roblox. Roblox is still like even weirder to me than UEFN and Fortnite. It's like its own world, basically. So I do know that I thought it was going to die a long time ago, but it hasn't, and it keeps growing and getting bigger somehow. And I'm like, how does that happen? And the same with Fortnite. And I don't really understand why that's happening. But what I do know is that at the very least, I tried Roblox like a little bit, underwhelmed by the quality, to say the least. The quality of Fortnite, I will say, I think is actually, I think it is a very well-designed game. Whether you like the direction or whatever is, I think, a different story. But I think that Epic clearly knows how to make video games, and they know how to design games very well. and I've been pretty impressed by the quality of the official Epic stuff. And the things that are on the Fortnite ecosystem made in UEFN, I hope that our Pal-Nite game kind of proves you can make some really quality entertainment in that ecosystem, and it's free. And that is such a hard sell when you're trying to sell standalone premium games versus having the game all your friends are playing that's free. It seems like a really hard sell to me. So I think going forward, when I'm thinking of trying to reach that demographic, a younger demographic for kids and like young teens and such, I don't know how you pull them out of those existing ecosystems, because that's where they are already, where all their friends are playing too. So yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
All right, I see that you guys have switched over from Unity to.
Yeah.
But you also stated that you guys also changed language.
Yes.
How much do you say that difficulty level would be to the language that you're using right now? How much support is there for that language?
Yeah. Yeah. So to repeat the question, in case anyone couldn't hear on Zoom, the question was kind of what was our experience like switching languages, and what is the experience like switching to verse specifically inside of the UEFN tools. I had done a lot of the programming functionality stuff inside of Unreal using blueprints, which I found to be really, really useful, because I have experience doing programming in C# inside of Unity, but I wasn't really ready to dive into C++ and like learn just all the structure that's the overhead structure that's kind of involved in that. So I stuck with blueprints and had a really great time working inside of Unreal for that. I was expecting when they were first announcing UEFN, because blueprints are such a huge aspect of development inside the Unreal Engine, that it would kind of transition and translate one-to-one from Unreal to the UEFN tools. That's not the case. They completely like don't allow blueprints at all inside of UEFN. And I think the reason they do that is because they don't want people to break Fortnite, if that makes sense, or like hack into it or like mess it up, because all the content that's running inside of this system is like running in just like the Fortnite servers, right? And they also have it hooked up to like XP systems and like base Fortnite systems that they probably don't want people really messing with. So they've created yeah. Yeah, so it is a standalone engine. Again, the interface is almost exactly the same as working inside of like Unreal Engine 5, basically. It is when you open UEFN, it'll say this is like branched off or like based on Unreal 5.3 or like whatever the latest Unreal version is. So it is using a ton of the same tools. The actual language itself, Chris, is it Java? What do you always say that it's like most similar to in terms of Python? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Verse is the only scripting language you can use right now. The interesting thing, though, Epic has said that they're working on their long-term vision for all of this stuff is to bring verse into base Unreal Engine and have that be like a scripting language inside of like base Unreal Engine. Everything that they've said so far to me indicates that they're in this game for like the very long run, and that they've invested all this stuff. They've created a programming language for it. They've done all these things that they're not going to pick up and like move away from it anytime soon. So I think we're going to see more. And I think they also like had mentioned they're going to have something this year where you can use verse like outside of UEFN and Unreal, just like as a language somehow. I'm not really sure how it's going to work, but yeah, it is learning a new language. They do have, again, documentation. It's getting there slowly but surely. The nice thing about Unity, of course, is that you can just Google like whatever problem you're having, and you'll find a forum post, right? There's so much community that's there, and so much content and documentation that was generated by the community. It makes it really easy to find that stuff. That doesn't really exist right now inside of UEFN or using verse scripting. The closest they have is going into which is kind of a terrible place to go. But you can go into like the official Fortnite Discord and just go into like their different chats and like look in their verse things, and do some searches to be like, oh, I need help with my NPC. And this is your documentation, basically. So if you like Discord and you like searching through Discord messages, you may love the documentation for a verse. So yeah, that's kind of our experience with it so far. But we were able to pick it up pretty quickly, I will say. The actual like, I mean, once you learn one programming language and you know the approach you want to take and you know what you want to do, that's half the battle, is being able to articulate what you're trying to accomplish, because then searching for that and like communicating that to other users and things, it makes it so much easier to actually get to the code that you need to get to. And it uses like all the same principles of like for loops and variables, and like it's not like super alien. So yeah. Hey.
Something that I've been doing, like as a game developer myself, is like looking at the game market and like looking at what models of success there are there that studios might be following.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, because like you showed that little tool at the end,
Mhm.
you look at the other game.
Yep.
Like, does it have ways on there to like look at like other games, like tags, like popular tags, and like, you know,
Yes.
like things like that to like be able to like look at and build like a model of success?
Yeah, you sure can. You can go and click any of the tags that Fortnite allows you to tag things on. And so if you did, let's look at the most artistic ones. I want to see what these, oh, well, there you go. Yeah. So the artistic ones are, I mean, you'll see they're not really doing super hot in terms of player count, but you can also, they order them based on like who has the most players to least. So yeah. And the cool thing too is if you look at let's look at a box fight, for instance. This is like the popular, and by the way, these like never leave. Like the popular ones, one thing that we've learned, which is a really unfortunate truth that I think is not only just inside of Fortnite, but I think Fortnite represents it pretty well. People want to play popular things. That's just like the nature of how everything goes, is they want to play what their friends are playing. And if their friends aren't playing your game, they're not going to play your game either. So it's that question of like, okay, well, they're only going to want to play popular things. Well, how do you become popular? Like what? And that's where like the algorithms come into play and all this stuff. But a cool thing about this is you can click on any of these and of course see the stats. You can see when they're updated as well. But you can also go and check and see, and you can see when they were put in different categories of the algorithms to track like where they were featured and what position they were in the algorithms. But you can also check on the updates and see, so they just changed their thumbnail. So they changed from this thumbnail for the square one to this one. I guess they removed all the new tags. I guess that wasn't working out for them. So you can actually look and see what they're changing and the stats that they have and see if those correlate or correspond and how that might influence like your decisions too. So this is, I don't know why this tool exists or how, but this site is like crazy because it has it for every, no matter how popular or unpopular a thing is, it has it for every single thing, including all of ours, by the way. So if you ever want to go and see how our things have done, you can click on any of them and see our stats and see our updates and how much money it has estimated us making. I'm not sure. So yeah, this one, we were probably like, yeah, like about $200, I think, probably for this one. But yeah, you can see all the stats for that. Yeah.
So compared to like this, like
Yeah.
your lowest game from this compared to
Right.
your actual games,
Yes.
like how much is the difference like between your
Oh, yeah.
game that you developed
Yeah.
or-
Our lowest Fortnite game was one that we put out that we got snubbed by the algorithms. It was the first one that we'd ever put out. It was our first person one that we thought was really cool, actually. And it actually isn't first person. It looks really, it doesn't quite look like this, but it looks really cool. You can see that we have had 4 players. Maybe. All right. So like every once in a while there will be, yeah. So like 20 players or something, because we didn't get in the algorithms. So yeah, that made $0 and got like 0 players or whatever. Again, with our original one, so we put out 2 full original commercial games. They've had different releases on different platforms. But each of those have probably made between a few hundred and a few $1,000s, but those were selling at $15 each, or yeah, like $10 or $15 each for those. Yes, yeah. All the platforms take 30%. Fortnite doesn't. So the way that their thing works is they don't specifically take like a cut directly from your stuff. They take however much money Fortnite makes in a month, and they take, I forget the exact, I think it's like half of the money that Fortnite makes in 1 month and splits it across all the creators based on how much playtime they've had, how many players, and all that, all the statistics, right? And so the more money Fortnite makes in 1 month, and that's what happened like around Christmas time, is that all the kids got those V-Bucks and they started spending them. And we got way more money that month, despite not really doing much else. So yeah, your success is kind of directly related to like how Fortnite works too, which is not really a pyramid scheme, but kind of feels like one a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of the performance. So as a whole, though, again, if you add up like the years of development that we spent doing original things versus the 1 year that we spent doing this, putting out 10 different things that are smaller and less risky for us, I guess, then yeah, that's kind of how it all weighs out. So yeah.
Do you find ecosystem games which are based on algorithms, do you find them more
Yeah.
a blessing or a curse or like a bit of both?
It's definitely both, because I think one thing the algorithms do is put less of an emphasis on, again, external like marketing campaigns, which my studio hasn't and may never have the resources to go out and spend tens of thousands or hundred. What was it? Monopoly, the Monopoly one that just spent $500 million, Monopoly Go or whatever, $500 million on their marketing campaign and made it back, by the way, like way more than that. But $500 million, we don't have that. We don't have a fraction of that. But that's who you're competing against, right? When you're in, if you're on the App Store, you're competing against Monopoly Go. If you're on PlayStation or Xbox, you're competing against the biggest games who have those big banners taking up those things, the screen real estate. The same on Steam. You're competing against like such bigger fish. And here, there's way smaller fish. There's still a lot of games that come out. What was it, Chris? Is it 50 or 500 a day? 500 things a day come out. Oh yeah. Yeah, what's yeah, you can see. Oh, by the way, this is like an updated thing of that. This is like, so there right now 7 creators out there again making projected 10 million or plus for a year, right? Oh yeah, you can see these really depressing things. There are 154,000 players with 0 or maps with 0 players right now. You can see like how many players per thing. Where was that stat, Chris? The how many per day? Oh, wait, what? Oh, there you go. 400. Okay, so 400 maps released in the past 24 hours. I don't know how many video games were released in the past 24 hours, like on like Xbox or PlayStation. It's definitely not that much, but it's still a lot. I mean, we saw firsthand when we launched our first game on Xbox, there was like a glitch in the system and it released early or something like that we weren't anticipating. And by the time the game actually came out, we were so far down the like recent release things that no one could like even see it, you know? So the algorithms are a blessing and a curse because again, I think they take away, they almost level the playing field a little bit, but also make it more chaotic, if that makes sense. Like it's not like you can really buy your way through like a really extensive marketing campaign to success in the Fortnite ecosystem. But the trade-off is you have to kind of somehow game the algorithms. And I do think we've tried so hard. If anyone can figure out how to like best the algorithms and like how to make it work in there, you're in for millions of dollars. Number one. Number two, please tell me how to do it. Because we've thought we kind of understand like what to do and the type of content that succeeds and all that stuff. And then we just see the random stuff that is out there right now that is doing really well. And we're just like kind of scratching our heads trying to figure out why I don't know what's like a weird, why this, what is this? Who has done this? A really bad, yeah. Yeah, like why? Well, I mean, it got me to click on it. Like maybe that's why it has 900 players are playing this right now. That person is gonna make bank. I promise you, they're gonna make thousands of dollars on this. Yeah. Uh-huh. And it's a meme, right? So again, the thumbnail is like whatever is shocking, whatever grabs your attention, it's fair game. And you'll see some really pretty crazy, terrible stuff. Of course, like the again, like all the IP stuff and everything is.
But the same person too.
It could be, yeah. I mean, I think the average, it says how many maps per creator. There, yeah, an average creator has put out 6 maps. So it's not just like one map they're putting out. We put out 10, right? So yeah, Jason.
So is there any sort of incentive, have you noticed, like you update the thumbnail?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there definitely is. There's new updates this week, for instance, is like a category. And so it's very possible to get like into a featured category again. If we've definitely seen that the updates haven't like got us back to like the original highs that we had like at launch. But I say that there is one day where we had updated our underwater game. I don't have it open right now. If you look at our stats, we updated our underwater game in October or November or something. We put it out in June, I think it was. And that's when we had like all the players and like made a bunch of money and stuff. And then in November, we had updated just like a small thing, just like a technical thing or whatever. And then that following week, we had our best day ever and had like 60,000 something players in one day for no reason. And we didn't really, and it got to like the very top of like the most popular category. And then it immediately fell off again. And we were like, what was that about? Because we hadn't even updated it that week. It was like the week after or something. So certainly I think it does buy you more opportunities at getting into the algorithms, but we haven't figured it out. And I don't think anyone has because they would be really, really wealthy and not share if they knew. I imagine. Yep. I imagine that's a big part of it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Just a real quick heads up, we're a couple minutes from 9. That being
Cool.
said, like, we just need to be out, have the room back in order and out of here by 10. We want to respect your time. Officially, the meeting ends at 9 p.m. So,
Cool.
But with that being said, we want to take a couple more questions. That's okay. We can do
Yeah.
that. We are going to get the room back in order shortly. But yeah, if you want to take a couple more time.
Yeah, I'll do 2 more questions and then I can stick around afterwards, of course, and talk more. So yeah, Kenny. Yeah.
Well, like you see a whole bunch of like, random games up there.
Yeah.
I thought about making like this random game.
Oh yeah. Of course, any like random or just anything that gets attention for sure. Yeah, but it's a question of like artistic integrity too, of like,
Yeah.
because we have like a brand, like, and it's attached to our brand. So like, how do we want to be known? And yeah, it gets tricky too, but yeah, whatever. Hey, whatever makes some money, right? It's always a trade. So
I'll probably make like a box fight.
yeah,
Like me, like you personally, because I played Pal-Nite.
Yeah.
I would enjoy that.
of course. Yeah, it's always it's worth. Hey, at the worst, you'll lose like a day or two of development, right?
Exactly.
So
Oh, yeah.
yeah. All right, any other questions before we like officially break off? Yeah, one more. Oh, so we definitely have a few both inside and outside of Fortnite. Inside of Fortnite, yes, we have well, we had like 3 or so projects that were like somewhere in development that we're gonna finish at some point. Probably the next one that I want to do, I really want to make a .io game, like an Agario or a Snakeo or whatever. There's new tech now that I think would allow for that. And I think the audience would work really well with that genre, and that the playtime and all that stuff, I feel like would work really well. So I think I want to try like an IO type game. And I haven't really seen that many out there now. So yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks again so much. I'll stick around if anyone has any more questions, but
We're
yeah,
gonna start breaking down. Thank you all. Thank you, Tom.
thank you.